Welcome to The Lone Cure. You found your little corner of the internet for those lifelong lessons you can absorb in just a few minutes of listening. Today, we're taking a deep dive, summarizing a really great read, Nassim Nicholas Taleb's Antifragile, Things That Gain from Disorder.
It's definitely one of those books that changes how you look at things.
Absolutely. And look, this isn't just another summary. We want to explore how you can maybe use these ideas, thrive a bit more in a world that's, well, full of surprises.
And if this resonates with you, honestly, consider getting the book. It's much richer, obviously.
For sure. And hey, if you learned something today, and I think you definitely will do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe. We've got more insights coming your way.
So let's jump right in. The core idea, antifragility. It's fascinating right off the bat.
Right. It's not just being resilient, like bouncing back,
Yeah.
or robust, just sort of tanking the hit.
Exactly. Antifragility is, well, it's about things that actually benefit from volatility, from randomness, errors, stressors. They get stronger.
How does he test that? There's a simple idea there, isn't there?
Yeah, the asymmetry test. Does a random event, a shock, offer more potential upside than downside? If yes, it's likely antifragile.
And if it's the other way around, more downside than upside.
Then you're looking at something fragile, simple, but really powerful when you start applying it.
Okay, let's unpack that. You mentioned stressors. What happens if you take those away? Like try to make everything perfectly safe.
Well, that's where the danger lies, according to Taleb.
Hmm.
Think about muscles. If you just protect them, avoid any strain.
They atrophy. They get weaker.
Precisely. He talks about this danger of depriving systems of these necessary stressors. He even calls it the Soviet Harvard delusion.
Soviet Harvard delusion. What's that?
It's this top-down thinking, this belief you can engineer perfect, predictable stability. Like you can design a system that's perfectly robust.
But he argues that's a myth. You can't achieve perfect robustness.
Right. He says systems, biological, economic, social, you name it, they need a dose of disorder to regenerate, to adapt, to actually get stronger over time.
Okay, so needing disorder makes sense. But how does this relate to risk? It sounds like predicting things is still hard.
That's a crucial distinction he makes. We can often detect fragility. We can see when something is vulnerable, maybe even measure it comparatively.
Well, you can tell this glass is more fragile than that rock.
Exactly. Or this political system seems more brittle than another. Or this building design versus that one in an earthquake zone. You can make comparisons.
But predicting the actual event, the earthquake, the market crash.
That's the tricky part. Calculating the risks of those rare big black swan events is, well, notoriously unreliable, but knowing something is fragile tells you a lot.
So you can predict longevity better based on fragility, even if you can't predict the specific shock.
That's the idea. Focus on identifying the fragility you can see rather than getting lost trying to predict the unpredictable.
Interesting. So what makes something fragile then? What does fragility dislike?
Basically anything that upsets the status quo. Volatility, randomness, uncertainty, disorder, errors, stressors, harm, chaos, even just the passage of time.
Like delicate things in a living room, needing peace and quiet.
Yeah, exactly. They need order. Any shock is bad news.
How does anti-fragility work in practice? He must give examples.
Oh, plenty. He even talks about his own experience. After The Black Swan came out, the attacks and criticism he got,
Yeah.
he argues it actually made his message stronger, reached more people, the controversy fed the interest, it was anti-fragile.
Huh. That's a great example. What about things like choices?
That's key. He introduces optionality. Having options, the freedom to benefit from unexpected good things while limiting your losses from bad ones, that drives anti-fragility.
And that's the opposite of that rigid Soviet Harvard approach.
Exactly. Optionality is bottom-up, flexible. The Soviet Harvard way is top-down, trying to predict and control everything.
Wow. And he even connects this to ethics. How?
Yeah, it's about who bears the risk. If you get the upside, but someone else gets stuck with the downside if things go wrong, that's a fragile setup.
The skin in the game idea.
That's it. Having skin in the game, sharing in the potential negative consequences, is fundamental to making systems less fragile and arguably more ethical.
He uses a myth to illustrate extreme fragility, doesn't he? Damocles.
Yes, the sword of Damocles, hanging by a single thread over the king's head during a feast. Perfect image of something incredibly fragile where disaster is just waiting to happen.
Always on the edge. Makes sense.
Now here's something that trips us up, according to Taleb. Domain dependence?
Domain dependence, what's that?
It's our weird tendency not to recognize the same basic idea when it shows up in a different context.
Like, you understand a concept in finance, but miss it when it appears in biology.
Exactly. You might learn French grammar, but not see the parallel principles when learning Spanish grammar. We get stuck on the surface details.
And that stops us from seeing antifragility everywhere it exists.
Pretty much. We compartmentalize too much.
Okay. And you mentioned systems getting stronger through stress. How does that relate to innovation? Is it just about bouncing back?
It's often more than bouncing back. Systems sometimes overcompensate when stressed. They build extra capacity, redundancy, as a buffer.
Like building thicker castle walls after an attack.
Sort of. And that extra capacity, that redundancy, it might seem inefficient in normal times.
Yeah, waste of resources.
But Taleb argues it's not waste, it's potential. It creates options, strength you can use opportunistically later, even if the original threat doesn't come back in the same way. It's more like an investment than just insurance.
That flips the script on efficiency. Redundancy is a strength.
Definitely. Think about nature. It's full of redundancy.
She brings us down to a personal level too, right, with weightlifting.
Yeah, his own experience. Instead of lots of moderate reps, he pushes himself with a maximum lift occasionally, then rests.
So intense stress followed by recovery.
Right. And his body doesn't just recover, it anticipates future stress. It adapts, gets stronger. It's antifragile.
And it had side effects too.
He mentions increased confidence in general, which was unexpected, a classic example of gaining from stressors in ways you didn't predict.
It's interesting. Even when people study recovering from trauma, they often use the wrong word.
Yeah, Taleb points out that fields looking at, say, post-traumatic growth often still call it resilience.
But resilience is just getting back to baseline.
Exactly. Antifragility is about exceeding the baseline because of the stressor. It's a subtle but really important difference in understanding how things evolve.
How does this play out in bigger systems, like societies?
Well, think about riots or revolutions. Sometimes harsh repression trying to stamp out dissent actually fuels the fire, makes the eventual explosion bigger.
Like trimming a tree aggressively makes it grow back stronger, sometimes too strong.
That's a good analogy he uses. And similarly, criticism. If an idea or a person can withstand attacks, the criticism can end up refining the idea, making it more robust, more persuasive.
If it survives, it gets stronger.
Right. The attacks test it and, paradoxically, can help it spread.
He contrasts living and non-living things using this idea too, right? Artificial tissue.
Yeah, the challenge of making artificial tissues isn't just replicating the structure. It's making them antifragile, able to heal, and maybe even strengthen from stress, like real biological tissues do.
Whereas most non-living things just wear out over time.
Exactly. That self-repair and improvement capacity is key.
This feels related to complexity. It's hard to see exactly what causes what in these systems.
That's causal opacity. In complex systems, economies, ecosystems, even our own bodies, sometimes the link between cause and effect is often really murky.
So you can't just use simple logic or analysis to figure it out.
It has limitations. You can't always neatly trace A leads to B leads to C. There are too many feedback loops, hidden variables. It makes conventional analysis difficult.
Like trying to pinpoint the one reason the stock market dipped yesterday.
Exactly. Good luck with that.
Even something seemingly simple like bone health.
Right. Research shows that stressing bones, like lifting heavy things, doesn't just slow down age-related weakening. It actually stimulates bone growth, makes them healthier.
So it's not just aging causing weak bones. Lack of stress contributes too. It's not a one-way street.
It challenges that simple linear view. Stress can be generative.
And apparently we kind of like a bit of randomness.
Yeah, Taleb talks about how we enjoy moderate randomness in games and play. It keeps things interesting.
He even applies it to his writing.
He mentions enjoying the surprises, not having a super rigid plan. He thinks if the writer is surprised and engaged, the reader is more likely to be too.
Makes sense. Avoids predictable boredom. Now, you said fragility can exist at different levels.
Yes, this is critical. For a system to be anti-fragile, sometimes its parts need to be fragile.
How does that work?
Think evolution again. Individual organisms are fragile, they die. But their death, their failure to adapt, provides information that allows the species as a whole to become stronger, more adapted, more anti-fragile over time.
So individual failure benefits the collective.
Often, yes. Errors made by individuals are crucial learning opportunities for the larger group or system.
That creates a tension, though, doesn't it? Between the individual and the collective.
A huge tension. The collective often benefits from individual risk-taking and even failure. Some level of individual sacrifice, or at least vulnerability, seems necessary for the system's health.
He mentions local overconfidence.
Yeah, the idea that individuals being perhaps a bit too confident and taking risks, even if many fail, can actually drive progress for the whole system through trial and error.
This tension, me and us, is it always like this?
He suggests this sharp conflict is relatively modern. Historically, when individuals had less impact or perceived importance, sacrifice for the group, for the tribe or community, was perhaps more central, less conflicted.
Interesting historical perspective. Let's talk about volatility again. He uses an example of income. A cab driver versus an office worker.
Great analogy. The cab driver has very volatile income day to day, lots of small ups and downs. The office worker has a stable paycheck.
So the office worker seems less risky.
On the surface, maybe. But the cab driver, with that constant variation, is arguably more antifragile to a big shock, like a sudden recession. They're used to adjusting, finding fares. The office worker with the stable income is actually more fragile to the single, catastrophic event of losing that one job.
The type of variability matters. Small, frequent shocks versus rare, big ones.
Exactly. And that applies to political systems, careers, all sorts of things.
So more visible variability might mean less risk of a catastrophic black swan.
Counterintuitively, yes. He uses Switzerland as an example. Lots of local variation, cantons doing their own thing, neutrality. It seems messy, but it makes the whole system quite robust, even able to benefit from global turmoil. It absorbs shocks better.
He has another pair of contrasting images. The souk and the office building.
Yeah, the souk, the bustling, chaotic, bottom-up marketplace versus the controlled, top-down, planned office building.
Souk is anti-fragile. Office building is fragile.
That's the metaphor. The souk has constant small-scale disorder and adaptation. The office building tries to eliminate all messiness, all variation.
And suppressing those natural variations.
Can lead to stability for a while, but it might be building up pressure, making the system vulnerable to a much larger, rarer, more devastating collapse. Those fat tails in statistics' extreme events become more likely.
There's a related story about preferring war over prison.
Yeah, the merchant from Aleppo who found the uncertainty and danger of war preferable to the predictable, stifling lack of freedom under a totalitarian regime.
Wow. Choosing chaos over oppressive stability.
It highlights that volatility isn't always the worst thing. He also compares Lebanon's messy but adaptable economy to Syria's more controlled but perhaps ultimately more fragile one.
How did ancient societies handle this? Did they understand randomness?
Well, he points to empires like the Romans and Ottomans. They often maintained stability not by micromanaging everything, but by allowing significant local autonomy, especially in commerce. Less centralized control.
Let things bubble up from below.
And they even had practices like divination or drawing lots like the sortes virgilianae for some decisions, maybe partly as a way to introduce randomness, avoid the hubris of thinking they could plan everything perfectly.
So that imposed stability. It can be a time bomb.
Exactly. If you prevent all the small instabilities, all the little adjustments, you might be allowing huge risks to build up unseen. Like preventing small forest fires allows fuel to accumulate for one massive, uncontrollable fire.
And there was a philosopher, Damastra.
Yeah, who had the paradoxical idea that conflict, war even, could sometimes strengthen a country by forcing adaptations and preventing the buildup of internal pressures that could lead to a bigger explosion later, like pruning a tree.
It's a disturbing thought, but it fits the anti-fragility logic.
Now, related to interventions, iatrogenics. Harm caused by trying to help.
Mostly heard that in medicine. Doctor caused harm.
Right. But Taleb applies it broadly. And he notes, isn't it weird we don't have a common word for the opposite accidentally helping someone?
Good point. Unintentional benefit.
And attacking something anti-fragile often causes iatrogenics for the attacker, like hackers making systems stronger by exposing weaknesses, or critics boosting a book.
The attack backfires. Okay, I loved this next bit. Procrastination.
The wisdom of procrastination, yes. He argues it's not always laziness. Sometimes delaying action is a natural defense.
Letting the system work it out. Or waiting for more info.
Exactly. It allows anti-fragility to operate. Instead of rushing in with a potentially harmful intervention, it challenges that modern view that procrastination is purely a disease to be cured.
So maybe my to-do list isn't so bad. What about information overload?
Big topic. He argues we need to focus on large changes, significant signals, and ignore the constant barrage of noise.
News headlines, market blips.
Yeah, we react emotionally to all this irrelevant information, but it just distracts us. Filter ruthlessly. Focus on what actually matters.
And then there's the turkey. We need to avoid being the turkey.
Right, the turkey problem. The turkey is fed every day, thinks life is great, humans are kind, until Thanksgiving.
Its past experience gives zero clue about the massive downside event coming.
Exactly. We can't just extrapolate from past stability, especially when dealing with systems prone to rare, large impacts. Our sophisticated models often fail precisely at predicting these black swans.
Be skeptical of smooth sailing. Okay, who is this Nero character he brings in? Not the emperor.
Sort of a fictionalized, modern Nero, Taleb uses him as a character who embodies some of these ideas. He's retired, values books, wants a life away from the wrong kind of volatility.
What are his allergies?
There are dislikes of modern phenomena he sees as fragile things that are overly optimized, artificial, lacking soul or history.
And this Nero has a specific background.
Yeah, statistics, probability. But he's skeptical of conventional models. He injects randomness into his life, like his travel plans, prefers things with staying power, things that have proven themselves over time.
Sounds like he's living the Lindy effect, which we'll get to. And he and Fat Tony, they bet against fragility.
Right. Characters like them profited from the 2008 crisis by betting against the fragile institutions, the ones built on hidden risks, though they have different views on money itself.
This leads to a strategy, doesn't it? The barbell.
Yes, the barbell strategy. It's about avoiding the fragile middle ground. You combine extreme safety on one side
Like keeping most assets in cash or very safe bonds.
with extreme calculated risk-taking on the other side. Small bets with huge potential upside.
So hyper-conservative and hyper-aggressive, nothing in between.
Pretty much. It creates that favorable asymmetry, limited downside, potentially massive upside. You're positioned to benefit from positive surprises.
And Thales, the philosopher who cornered the olive presses.
Aristotle tells that story. Thales supposedly foresaw a great olive harvest. He rented all the olive presses cheaply beforehand.
So when the bumper crop came,
He made a fortune renting them out. The point isn't just prediction, it's optionality. He secured the option to profit massively if things went well, with limited downside if they didn't. You don't need perfect foresight if you have good options.
intelligence sometimes misses the importance of options.
Got it.
What about causality again? We often get it wrong.
Oh, constantly. Historians, journalists, analysts, they love creating neat cause and effect stories that might be completely wrong. He gives an example of a journalist wrongly linking Mandelbrot and Taleb's work just because they both dealt with randomness.
Seeing connections that aren't really there. Does this relate to academia?
Taleb critiques academia for sometimes focusing too much on its own narrative, what it did, and missing the role of tinkering, luck, and unexpected applications.
Like the linear model. Basic science leads to applied tech.
Right. He argues it's often messier. Think of the computer, the internet. Lots of unintended consequences, contributions from hobbyists, practical needs driving discovery, not just pure science dictating technology.
So don't assume the academics always know best how things actually happen.
Or that their methods are the only way innovation happens, which leads to the green lumber fallacy.
Green lumber.
It's about a guy who made a fortune trading green lumber, thinking it was lumber painted green. He didn't know it just meant freshly cut.
He didn't know the details, but understood the market dynamics.
Exactly. The fallacy is mistaking superficial knowledge, like knowing the type of wood, for the deeper understanding of the system, how the market works, focusing on the wrong details.
Where are the stressors? The Abu Dhabi example raises that question.
Yeah. Can these super planned, stable environments sustain themselves long-term without the natural stressors that drive adaptation and innovation? Does sophistication only come from need, from struggle? It's a provocative question.
And education. Does more spending always equal more wealth?
He challenges that assumption too, pointing to examples where countries with less formal education outperformed those with more, suggesting wealth might enable widespread education rather than the other way around.
Like Taiwan versus Philippines, Korea versus Argentina.
The link isn't as straightforward as we often think.
And conflation. It's mistaking related things.
Fat Tony's line, Kuwait and oil are not the same thing. You might predict a war involving Kuwait, but that doesn't automatically mean you'll make money betting on oil prices going up. Other factors matter, like supply.
Don't conflate the trigger with the complex outcome. Got it. History written by losers. That sounds wrong.
He means sometimes the narratives we get are skewed. We should try to understand history, especially technology, from the perspective of the tinkerers, the practitioners, not just the historians weaving neat stories after the fact.
Get the ground truth. like lecturing birds on how to fly.
His phrase for academics telling practitioners how to do their jobs based on theories that might not match reality. He saw this in finance early on.
Practice doesn't always follow theory. Sometimes theory follows practice, or they're disconnected.
Right, which connects to Fat Tony's focus on definitional knowledge.
What is what? Like Socrates.
Exactly. Understanding the essential nature of things, not just describing them.
And Nietzsche comes in here, critiquing pure reason.
Yeah, Nietzsche's point about the Socratic focus on reason, Apollonian, ignoring the darker, messier, more instinctive forces, Dionysian, that are also vital.
You need both.
Perhaps. And sometimes tradition, the unspoken way things work, is more robust than our attempts to explain it rationally.
Like Fat Tony saying Socrates was killed for messing with something that worked, even if people couldn't articulate why it worked.
It highlights the limits of literate and logic to capture complex reality.
Nonlinearity again. The pebbles versus the stone.
The rabbinical story. A king wants to harm his son. Hitting him with one big stone does way more damage than hitting him with the same total weight in tiny pebbles.
Harm doesn't scale linearly. A big shock is disproportionately worse.
Absolutely. Which is why building buffers is so important. Taleb uses his own example of avoiding lateness.
Building in redundancy in his schedule.
Yeah, always being early. It avoids the large negative consequence of being late, and the buffer time becomes unexpectedly useful for reading, thinking, another hidden benefit of redundancy.
Iatrogenics again. In money and nutrition.
Same principle. Naive interventions can hurt. Like maybe some traditional fasting practices, dismissed by modern science, actually had hidden benefits related to hormesis or convexity.
Convexity in nutrition. Like, varying your intake is better than steady balance.
Possibly. The body might benefit from occasional feasts and fasts, stressors and recovery, rather than a perfectly monotonous intake. It's an antifragile response.
And size? Bigger isn't always better. The elephant example.
Owning an elephant seems great, powerful, but during a drought, the cost of feeding it becomes astronomical. Size increases fragility to certain kinds of shocks, squeezes.
Like large corporations being more vulnerable than small businesses in some ways.
Definitely. Which connects to the Kerfiel episode. Taleb warned Sakin. He mentions warning their board about black swan risks and fragility before the Kerfiel trading disaster happened, but the warnings were ignored. A classic case of failing to see fragility.
Travel delays. They're nonlinear too.
Oh yeah, uncertainty in travel almost always adds time, rarely subtracts it. Delays compound, negative convexity.
And efficiency can be costly.
Pushing systems to maximum efficiency often removes buffers and redundancy, making them brittle. So when an error does happen, the cost is much higher. Think global supply chains or computerized trading systems that crash hard.
The pursuit of efficiency increases fragility.
Often, yes. The financial crisis was a massive example of this hidden fragility.
Jensen's inequality.
Well,
This sounds mathematical.
It is, but the concept is key for anti-fragility. If your potential payoff is convex, meaning your gains from being right are much bigger than your losses from being wrong, you can actually be wrong more often than right and still come out ahead.
Like the barbell strategy. You only need one of your risky bets to pay off big.
Exactly. It's fundamental to innovation and why tinkering works, but it's often missed in standard analyses.
What about knowledge itself? How do we improve it robustly?
Subtractive knowledge. Taleb argues the most robust way to gain knowledge isn't adding new theories, but removing what's wrong, figuring out what doesn't work.
Like rejecting something if someone needs more than one excuse for it. Keep it simple.
Or via negativa, defining something by what it is not. It's less prone to error.
And time. Time is a key player here.
Time is the ultimate test. It's disorder. It benefits the anti-fragile and destroys the fragile. Things that survive a long time likely have some hidden robustness, some reason for being, even if we don't understand it.
So trust things that have lasted.
Which brings us to the Lindy effect.
Right. The longer something non-perishable has been around, the longer its future life expectancy.
Yeah. A book that's been in print for 50 years is likely to be in print for another 50. A technology used for centuries is likely to outlast the latest gadget.
Like forks and spoons versus the latest kitchen gizmo at that dinner party analogy he uses.
Exactly. Time filters out the fragile, the faddish.
Which means we should be wary of neomania.
The love of the new just for its own sake. Taleb argues the past, what has survived, is often a better guide to the future than the hype around the present. History over headlines.
We even see technology reversing, like shoes.
The move back towards barefoot-style shoes after decades of complex engineered footwear, sometimes the old ways were more robust.
And treadmill effects. We just adapt to new tech.
We get the new phone, it's amazing for a week, then it's just normal. We're on a treadmill, always seeking the next upgrade, rarely finding lasting satisfaction from the technology itself.
Modernity itself can feel unnatural, fragile.
He mentions his dislike of the smooth, sharp angles in modern architecture, citing negative social effects linked to some modernist projects, a lack of organic complexity.
Even buildings seem to evolve after they're built.
Yeah, people modify them, they adapt over time, as if needing to interact with their environment, less static than designed.
Applying Lindy to information. Read old books.
Basically, older books and papers that are still read have likely passed a filter that newer stuff hasn't yet. He's critical of modern academia, sometimes feeling like journalism chasing novelty and attention over lasting insight.
So, his prediction for the future.
Based on antifragility, he expects enduring, robust things to dominate and large, over-optimized, fragile entities, big states, big corporations to weaken or break.
We lack recursive thinking. What's that?
Thinking about thinking. We often model the new, based on what was new yesterday, failing to imagine truly different futures or risks, like risk managers modeling the next crisis based only on the last one.
Okay, shifting towards medicine and ethics. Philosophy and medicine were linked.
Historically, yes, both dealt with decision-making under uncertainty. Taleb advocates for the via negativa in medicine. Intervene only when the potential upside is huge and clearly outweighs the potential harm. Especially don't intervene in mild conditions.
The burden of proof is on the intervention.
Exactly, especially for unnatural interventions. Prove it helps significantly before exposing people to potential iatrogenic harm.
Because the costs are often hidden and delayed.
Right. Small visible benefit now, large hidden cost later. That's the trap.
And medical response is nonlinear.
Hugely. Don't treat the mildly ill the same way you treat the critically ill. The risk-benefit changes dramatically. Don't take big risks with healthy people.
But medicine often uses linear thinking.
Extrapolating risks linearly, yes, which leads to turkey situations in medicine.
Like statins maybe being overprescribed.
Yeah.
Interventions that seem good but have downsides for many.
That's the kind of pattern he warns about. Naive interventionism without appreciating nonlinearity and hidden risks.
Even GMOs? Top-down versus evolution.
He contrasts top-down genetic modification, which could create massive unforeseen fragility, with the slow, bottom-up trial-and-error robustness of natural evolution. One allows for huge errors, the other corrects errors incrementally.
Trust experience over theory.
Empirical results, what actually happens, tend to be more reliable than the theories we invent to explain them because the theories change all the time.
Like his blood pressure example. Variation leads to over-medication.
His own experience. One high reading due to context, and suddenly you're labeled hypertensive. Focusing on single data points or simple averages in a noisy system can lead to medicalizing normal variation.
Even experts misunderstand stats.
Often, yes, they underestimate randomness, misinterpret statistical significance.
Hospital strikes. Less surgery didn't mean more deaths.
Counterintuitive evidence suggesting that reducing elective, perhaps less necessary interventions doesn't harm overall mortality, maybe even helps slightly. Less is sometimes more.
And nutrition again. Variability might be good. Hormesis.
Yes, periods of dietary stress, like fasting or variation, might trigger beneficial adaptive responses, unlike steady, monotonous eating.
Okay, let's wrap up with ethics. Opacity allows hiding risk.
Absolutely. If cause and effect are unclear, it's easier for someone to benefit while transferring a risk and potential harm onto others.
Which brings us back full circle to skin in the game.
It's the core mitigator. If you share the potential downside, you're less likely to create hidden fragility for others. Think Hammurabi's code: if the building collapses, the builder faces consequences.
The agency problem is central here.
People in charge, bankers, CEOs, politicians getting the bonuses or the power upside while society bears the cost of their mistakes. Downside.
That's the opposite of heroism.
Right. Heroism is taking risks for others, bearing the downside yourself.
The triad. Those who gain without risk, those neutral, those who sacrifice.
A useful way to categorize actions based on skin in the game.
And historically, thinkers who died for their ideas had immense prestige.
Socrates, Jesus. Ultimate skin in the game. He critiques middle-class values that sometimes avoid risk and sacrifice at all costs.
What about post-dictors? People explaining things after they happen.
They benefit from volatility without taking risks. They can always find a narrative to fit the outcome, cherry-pick successes. The real test is who put their money or reputation on the line beforehand.
Look at actions, not just words. The Stiglitz syndrome.
academics or commentators offering contradictory advice over time without consequence. Good intentions, maybe, but no skin in the game means no real penalty for being wrong or inconsistent.
Winning versus being right. Survival matters more.
In the real world, yes. Outcomes, survival, positive results are the measure, not winning debates or having the most elegant theory.
Like evolution favors survival, not the best story. Supports free enterprise.
As a system driven by decentralized trial and error, individual adventurers taking risks rather than central planners trying to predict everything, it's inherently evolutionary.
Even poetry can kill you. Skin in the game for creators.
The example of the poet al-Mutanabi, killed for his powerful, critical verse, he lived and died by his words.
True prophecy involves commitment, action.
Not just talk, putting yourself on the line for your beliefs.
And anti-fragility can be transferred at someone else's expense.
Like managers benefiting from short-term volatility, bonuses for quarterly results, even if it makes the company itself more fragile long-term.
Which makes large corporations fragile. Adam Smith saw this.
Smith was skeptical of joint stock companies because managers, agents, don't own the company, creating that agency problem. Taleb argues this makes large corporations inherently fragile.
Trust individuals over institutions. Lawrence of Arabia or Meyer Lansky?
People with skin in the game, even flawed ones, might be more reliable than faceless institutions where accountability is diffused.
And be wary of professionals in public affairs.
Their professional survival might depend on certain outcomes or narratives, creating conflicts of interest when advising on things affecting everyone else.
Finally, the tyranny of the collective. Everyone is doing it.
Especially in academia or finance, groupthink can take over. Adhering to convention, even flawed convention, feels safer than sticking your neck out, which stifles real progress and allows fragile ideas to persist. So, wrapping it all up, Antifragile really gives you this lens, doesn't it? A way to see the world through volatility, fragility, and importantly, potential growth from disorder.
Absolutely. It's about rethinking stability, understanding that stress isn't always bad, and recognizing where systems might be hiding risk or where they have the potential to get stronger. It's about skin in the game, about optionality.
And maybe about being a little less afraid of the unpredictable and a bit more focused on building robustness and the capacity to benefit from surprises when they inevitably happen.
Yeah. So as you go about your week, think about it. Where do you see fragility masked as stability? Where might a little stress actually be beneficial in your work, your health, your community? What has stood the test of time versus what's just new and shiny?
It's a powerful framework, and again, this was just scratching the surface. The book itself goes so much deeper, with countless more examples and nuances.
Definitely worth a read if this sparked your interest. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on the lone cure. If you found value here, please do like and subscribe. We'll be back soon with more lifelong lessons in minutes.